And we are back. I have done it. They tried to keep us off the air, Dan, and we simply refused to be kept off the air.
We'd like to thank the great people at YouTube for deciding to just rip down our live stream. That was a tough move on their part.
It's a bold move.
It's a bold move on their part. Bold move on their part. But you know what? When you go to third-party providers and you trust them with live content, right? This is what happens to other drafts as well.
Yeah, I mean, so let's get right back into it, because what's been happening while we've been kind of figuring this out here, and now I can finally take this out of my ear. It's nice to be listening to one conversation again, Dan.
How's it going, Lucas?
It's going great. We finished up the phase 1 part of the draft, and we were lucky enough to get that all in one video. So the phase 1 part of the draft will be located on the video that says phase 1. We're now in phase 2 here, starting with technically round 15 as we get to the phase 2s. The big thing here, these are older players who might be ready to go on day 1.
Yeah, and this is, you're not drafting, you're drafting for the future always when you draft, right? But sometimes the future is today. And with a lot of these draft picks, you're going to see guys that are going to make differences in locker rooms right away. And more importantly, you're going to see goaltenders that are going to be starting in nets right away, Lucas, in this portion of the draft.
Yeah, I think that'll be the big thing, right? It's guys who, are going to be making immediate impacts. They could be leaders, right? A little bit more veteran presence as well, right? So the big thing when you have a locker room that's a mix between, the 07s, the 08s, and then your 04s and your 05s, you're learning, right? You're developing not just from the coach down. It's development from within. You trust these guys to be kind of your leaders, right? Not just on the ice, but off the ice a little bit too. For a lot of the younger players, it's so tough, right? You and I have talked about it on the Dan K Show quite a bit. We're seeing some of the comments come in here. Yes, sir. Yes, we're back. They at home, they knew we were going to get this thing back up and running.
It was never Dan K. Did Dan K go back to the wonderful charcuterie board set up by the incredible crew?
Were you just eating prosciutto while I was trying to figure that out?
I have eaten what some would call an unreasonable amount of prosciutto and cheese out of stress as we got back on the air while Lucas was getting to work.
I absolutely love that. But yeah, Dan, one of the things that we talk about why it's so important to have great leadership off the ice as well is because for some of the young players, they've played at home, right? They haven't really been away from home yet. So you're going to be asked to go to potentially a new place, a new part of the country, a new area of the country. You want those leaders that know how to do it, right? When you get homesick, right? Hey, man, here's some advice on how to deal with that, right? Obviously, we live in the age of instant communication sometimes, but instant communication nonetheless, right? So you call home, but it's so important to build that culture. So sometimes an overused word, culture, but I think in the NCDC, it's one of those things that's incredibly dependent on the guys you have.
And as that bell rings, that lets you know that phase 2 of the draft is underway, and it is time to get into these picks. Lucas, we've got the first round behind us here of phase 2. Let's pop that up on the board for everybody here. Let's get that going, because Rock Springs with the first pick takes Felix Antoine Laflamme. And that is a lot of chimes in the background of our live draft right now. Someone's very excited to get into the building and see what's going on in Casper. But Felix Antoine Laflamme out of Quebec, this is a young man from Norwich HC. He gets picked first overall. Max Deneen, Deneen Cup, right? Why not go get a guy that's the namesake of the Cup right there? Max takes it to the max, a guy from Brentwood, New Hampshire out of Cushing Academy that Dan Hodge is going to look to make a difference right away in 06 birth year. Samuel Massey for the Northern Cyclones in 05 from Mirabel, Quebec. West Kent product. Thomas Dell, dude, you're getting a Dell. At least if you're from the Wilkes-Wagon, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Knights get Thomas Dell, a left defenseman in an 05 at 6'2", 200, and physical. The Connecticut Junior Rangers and Jersey Hitmen both goal to the net. Wilhelm Blom in 05 goes to Connecticut. Tyler Spokane out of Williamsville, New York to Jersey. Those netminders, Lucas, you got to imagine a chance to start right away in Jersey and Connecticut.
Yeah, those are going to be big, right? And that's two organizations that kind of want to see what you've got right off the bat, right? They kind of want to throw you into it. You made the point earlier about learning to ride a bull by just going out and doing it, right? These are two organizations that want to see how you respond to that. And regardless of the result, they're going to help you, right? And they're going to support your kind of development, your journey. But, I think for both these organizations, they've had a great draft, and I like these picks as well. Some of these first round and phase 2 picks seem like they're going to be pretty high impact.
For the Rockets Hockey Club, Max O'Connell, left defenseman from Norwell, Massachusetts, a man in his final season of junior hockey, going to immediately try to get things done in Bridgewater. Pueblo, they get Josh Tokarski, a right winger and an 06 from the Minnesota range there. You know, just the state of hockey. Just the state of hockey. Never bad to get talent out of Minnesota, 6'2", 190. Next up, you go to Matthew McMillan, going to the Idaho Falls Spud Kings. An 04 out of Gloucester, Ontario, a Powassan star from the Noge, 6'2", 170. Westchester gets Emil Zipezi, left winger, an 06 out of Timrå, Sweden. Next up, Mercer takes Luke Gustafson, forward from San Jose, California. The Casper NCDC, they take another Wisconsin star, this one for the Milwaukee Junior Admirals, Trace Shumlis, a left defenseman, and an 05 birth year, 5'8", 162. Utica, Aiden Stubbings going their way out of Dallas, Texas in his final year out of Hawkesbury CCHL. The Utah Outliers get Braden Hansberger, who has hands, the Silky Mitts Club member. This is a skilled 06 from Elk River. Next up, Jaden Dupree, South Shore Kings. He's immediately, as we've said before, defending Dineen Cup champion, St. Albans, Vermont star. Rolfs Wiedmanis, Ogden Mustangs, he was the next name on the Casper board, I can tell you, and he is off the board. A big one right there, 6'1", 165. Brady Plaza and Carson Nicholas round out round one of Phase 2.
Yeah, and we thank you for joining us here on this Phase 2 portion of the draft. Some big-name talent going through on the board, and also some big-sized talent as well. You're seeing guys who, as much as we talked in Phase 1 about they have some room for development, well, these are guys, especially some of your 04s and 05s, who they've got not just the development, but they've got the size as well, as our tech guru just given.
I like this.
That's,
I
you know
like
what that
this
is
guy.
too? That's the tech look-in. That's
Yeah,
what I do as
I
well.
like that a lot, and it scares me every time you guys do it.
We communicate silently, but it scares Dan every time. But these are great talents, and from all around the country as well, right? I love that you're seeing so many states and so many countries being represented, not just in Phase 2, but in Phase 1, right? We've got obviously a ton of folks from Canada, but even in the first round of this Phase 2 part of the draft, Quebec, New Hampshire, New York, Massachusetts, Ontario, California, Wisconsin, Texas, Vermont, right? It is a global game, and especially in the United States, I think it's a game that is reaching all corners of the country. You've seen the Arizona product become an incredible source of talent in the junior ranks, and now with the new team and the professional team that's coming to Utah as well, that's a region of the country that, even though the NCDC is already fairly prevalent there, they're going to get some professional ranks to kind of bolster that game, and it can only have positive impact, I think, for the folks in Utah.
Yeah, 100%. And Utah, that Outliers team, man, what they do in developing their players, the off-ice work that they get in their personalized gym there with their instructor, and the work that they do in and out, that they're just creating talent in Utah, right? And you see some of their talent playing right now in Maryland, going for a title there. This is a team in Utah that has a lot of talent in and out of that building. Lucas, we've got round 16 behind us now, the second round of Phase 2. Let's check out the next 04 through 06s to be picked. And the round starts off with a man from Arvada, Colorado, Colorado T-Birds 18U star, AJ Scarafani. Scarafani. Lucas, you're my resident Italian of the Dan K Show.
Dan can do so much with a name.
I don't know.
But any name that's vaguely Italian, Dan
I
Dan
apologize.
cannot handle. I would say that it's AJ Scarafani.
Scarafani goes there, a left defenseman at 05, 5'11", 175. Twin City, they get Trevor Ponath, an 06 forward from Boston HA Prep 18Us, 6', 185. William McDonald goes to the Northern Cyclones, a forward and an 06 birth year from Team Wisconsin 18U. Next up, this is a guy I like out of Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, Keegan Shearer, going to the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Knights, an 05 birth year, played for the Philadelphia Little Flyers in the AYHL 18s. I like the way Keegan plays. I like his makeup at 5'11", 175. He plays bigger than 5'11".
Yeah, I think that's right? And you talk about Keegan Shearer in that sense. At 5'11", 175, does have some size, but he plays large, and as you say, Dan, he plays in charge, right? Somebody who is not over-the-top production, but certainly more than a point per game. He's played in a lot of different places. He certainly finds ways to get in his hockey games regardless of this year, regardless of the season, but I think that you look at Keegan as a producer, a guy who has a little bit of balance, but does lean more towards the assists, right? So I think that he can be someone at the right wing position for Wilkes-Barre that maybe the offense flows a little bit through him, right? Maybe he becomes that guy who kind of sits and reads the ice and figures out what to do, kind of running from the point a little bit. So I think Wilkes-Barre is a great place for Keegan to end up, to be drafted by. Size, experience, and I think someone who knows how to handle the puck.
Yeah, we keep going down the list, and we'll get to a guy who knows how to handle the puck as well. You go to Connecticut first. William Campbell, centerman, 04 out of Karlskoga out there. It's got to have a little Mike Stanaway on it, I feel like. It's got to have a little bit of it right there. The Jersey Hitmen, Joshua Penny, the centerman out of Almonte, Ontario. They take him out of Renfrew CCHL. And next up, this is the guy I want to talk about. I love this pick from the Rockets Hockey Club. I absolutely love it. Duncan Stewart, an 05 Short Hills, New Jersey guy, played for Canterbury School, a young man with 40 points in 28 games for Canterbury last season. With the Nevada River Rats 18U, 13 points in the 18U AAA with them. But this is a guy that goes all the way back up. You know, he listed here as a Tampa, Florida product as well. So a Floridian up to Short Hills, New Jersey. This is a kid who does a little bit of everything. He's a strong forward, 185, 6 foot, skilled. This is one of my favorite picks so far of this round of the draft.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. And just from the way you describe him, Dan, from kind of what you see of him, just an all-around guy, a guy that fills you with confidence. And you need those guys. You need those skaters, those players in your system. Just someone that when they hit the ice, you feel good about it, right? When they're on the bench, sometimes you feel good about them too. They're resting, they're getting ready. They kind of do whatever you need them to do, and that's a unique player, and I think that's a special player.
Mason Ray going to go to the Pueblo Bulls, a right defenseman from Grand Forks, North Dakota. He is 220. Pueblo continues its size drafting. They will be a gigantic team this season. Idaho Falls, Nolan Francis, the goaltender going there from North Ridgeville, Ohio, a Detroit Little Caesars 18U skater. Next up, goaltender, Westchester, Herman Larson Boger, left winger, 05, 6'3", 198. They get some size for RC like in Westchester. Gaber Sorn there. Mercer Chiefs going to take him, an 06 and a forward for Mercer. Casper, they get their netminder. This is a kid who can make a difference right away. He's had some talks with some Division I teams out there in that mountain region. This is a young man in Kyle Pisarcik that Dan K didn't just like because the last name sounds the same as Kemchik. But this is Pisarcik here. This is a guy, 06, an Anaheim Junior Ducks 18U star, T1EL 18s. He was stellar all year long. Utica, they get Ryan Warner, a right defenseman at LaSalle College, PA High School. Next up, Utah Outliers get Jack Kent, right defenseman from Northwood Prep. Love that defenseman right there. Dominiks Domakejevs, a South Shore Kings star from Latvia. Played for the Nashville Junior Preds, another Nashville Junior Pred off the board there. Brooks Cogswell from Ogden, an Andover, Minnesota product. Nate Freelove, one of the best names in all the game. Nate Freelove for IHC. And then finally, Sam Taby goes to PAL.
And I want to talk about two names on this list. The first name I want to talk about is Gaber Sorn. Gaber Sorn going to the Mercer Chiefs, a forward, an 06, 6 foot, 175. He's out of Somang, right? The Somang Prep, the 18U squad. What a time he had with Somang. Talking about somebody who has scored more than a point per game over the entirety of that season. A guy who produces just up and down. There is not something that he's not good at, basically. Can kind of come into a program and do whatever you need him to do. And I feel like that works very well with what they do in Mercer, right? Where they have Bobby Broads, as we call him, one of the coolest guys in all the game. He's a great head coach. We absolutely love him. But I think it's a good program for a guy like Gaber, right? Someone who comes in with the skills necessary. He's going to mesh well with that system, you got to imagine, right? He's going to spend some time out there. That Mercer team is an incredible program, all levels of the game. They know how to get it done in Mercer. And then the second name I want to talk about, Dan, is I think a name that you might be able to have some fun with potentially on a call eventually, Brooks Cogswell. Feels like a very proper name, something you could do in a bit of a British accent for yourself. You don't have to do it yet. We'll let you work on it. Well, he panicked immediately. He thought he was going to have to do a call for someone that. Oh. Don't worry, Dan. You don't have to do any play-by-play until September. But for Brooks Cogswell, this is a forward that's going into an Ogden system, an Ogden team that represented itself quite well, I would say, at the Dineen Cup Finals all season long. They took South Shore Kings to the brink with that final Game 3 going all the way to overtime. But for Brooks, someone who's coming in with size 6'2", 170 from Andover, played at Andover High, 37 points for Andover High this season, 17 goals, 20 assists. I think the big thing you're seeing is that you're seeing, at least in phase two, Dan, guys who are incredibly reliably guys who can produce, right? In phase one, you look at some guys who maybe they don't have the game count you're looking for, but you can see it in the skating. They don't have the stats you're looking for, but you're kind of figuring out the intangibles. You're seeing what you can build upon. For phase two, these guys are producers. They're no stranger to the back of the net, and they're no stranger to being successful on winning teams.
Yeah, and round 3 has come to a conclusion now. We are absolutely firing through this draft.
Simply buzzing.
3.5 to 5 hours, Dan and Lucas Jones.
Could
and
be 6.
2 hours later, we are about to be done with this thing. Rock Springs round 3 of phase 2 underway. They take Aiden Grant, a forward from Fullerton, California, an Anaheim Junior Ducks 18U star. You can see how good Anaheim was this past season because everybody's taken from that talent pool. Another Aiden goes in the second pick of the third round of phase 2, Twin Cities' Aiden Siegel. He'll join their squad, an 06 left defenseman from Franklin Square, New York. The Northern Cyclones, they'll take Liam Lungerantz. Lungerantz there, he'll go join the squad in 05, a 6'7" tall, 198-pound left defenseman that Bill Flanagan's ready to put to use.
That's got Matt Rempe size out there.
Lead him off the bus, baby. That's Matt Rempe coming onto the ice every time out.
Oh, you got to love that. And this Northern team, we talk about Northern as disruptors, right? They come in, regardless of the record, regardless of the success in the season, they're looking to stop you from doing whatever it is you think you're going to do. When you talk about the phrase every plan, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, the Northern Cyclones are the team that kind of throws that first punch. They play physical, they play fast, and I think the biggest thing is when you have that much hockey knowledge on your backbench, when you have that much hockey expertise, the X's and O's are absolutely pristine coming from that Northern side.
Yeah, and you look going forward here, Semyon Royev going to make the move there, the 04. He'll play his final season with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Knights if they like him, as they take the draft pick there. The Connecticut Junior Rangers, they get Alex Lofgren. Another man from Sweden going to the Connecticut Junior Rangers. The pipeline continues there. They had a lot of success in the Premier of the National Championship, looking to do so in the NCDC now as well. Spencer Vandenberg from the Jersey Hitmen. He's a Dorchester, Ontario skater there. An 05, a left winger. He'll go to Jersey. The Rockets Hockey Club, another great pick for them. Jacob Rothman, an 05 from Frederick Gunn. And next up, Pueblo. They take Gavin Barr, Colorado Springs, Colorado native, a kid who played for Helena in the NA3HL. He'll make the move to the Pueblo Bulls. The Idaho Falls Spud Kings get Mario Scalise, a right defenseman from Chicago, Illinois. Again, we talk about Coach Bone and his understanding of the Chicago products there. He gets another Windy City star. Owen Riffle. He'll go to the Westchester Wolves, a skater out of Manitoba. Next up from Quebec, Samuel Dumont will go to the Mercer Chiefs. And another man from Quebec, the back-to-back Quebec connections, the right defenseman Felix Antoine Pomerleau goes to the Casper NCDC side, a young man who played for Potomac in the USPHL Premier. Maxim Petrus, Roman Thompson, Utica and Utah take those 2 stars, one from Slovakia, one from Minnesota. Lyndon Donald Gorman, the South Shore Kings take that right winger from Edmonton, Alberta. And your final 3 picks of the third round of Phase 2, Jordan Brothers from Ogden, Apple Valley, Minnesota star, and Eastview, Minnesota high school skater. A Michigan high school star in net, Maxim Johns, goes to IHC, and PAL takes Easton Rooney from White Bear Lake.
And before we get into some of the analysis of these players, Dan, we want to thank everyone for jumping onto the stream with us here. We have recovered nicely from the snafu earlier. We're getting some comments coming in for Gaber Sorn, loving that pick. We're also getting a comment from Slightly Above Average on YouTube, who was wondering, so even though Phase 1 had a possible hundreds and hundreds of players that could have been picked, why would teams have passed and why would that have ended so early?
Great question. So here's how things have worked in past years. There was a 70-man protected list in the NCDC, meaning that you could have up to 70 players that were claimed by, let's say, a Mercer Chiefs or by a Casper NCDC. You had 70 players that you could have your stamp on where if they were to move within the NCDC, there would be transactions or releases or things of that nature to make those movements. That number has been cut down to 46 this season for the first time, right? So you got to imagine 24 players in a league that kind of limits its age-out numbers and has a younger base of talent. you're not going to have 24 age outs in a season for any of these guys, right? You're not going to lose 24 guys off your roster each and every year. So what happens is you cut down to 46. There's only so much room to work with right now for these guys. And the reasoning behind the move is to make the picks more vital. It's to make the picks matter more. It's to ensure that when a player gets selected in the NCDC, they have every opportunity to make a difference in the NCDC and then grow beyond it and utilize it as its development base to grow their game, to grow themselves personally, and to move on to the next level of hockey. So what happened this season is you see a lot more passes than you got in past years because there's not as much space. As this thing goes forward, teams may be in a better position to really position themselves for this 46-man protected list. I'd imagine next year you'll see more draft picks happen. I'll imagine if teams are ever added to the NCDC in any of these divisions, you'll see picks for those that'll go longer. We also have, for the first time in NCDC history since we started up, there are no expansion teams.
Right.
So that also means that every team has a roster base. Westchester, remember, they're built with the protected assets of the Boston Junior Bruins. Casper, remember, they're built with the protected assets of the Provo Predators. So you look at that and you say, okay, there's no team that started from zero. So when you don't start from zero, there's no team with 20 tenders and then having to make 50 picks to fill a 70-man roster. That is not going to occur this year, right? So that is why you see a lower number of draft picks this season in the 07-08 draft than you've gotten in past years. Then you add into it that you add in this 4-round 04 to 06 draft where teams are able to draft talent that affects them right now. Some of that 07-08 talent, of course, will play in the NCDC, but some of it might be guys that are building towards the future, right? They might stay with their parent club and eventually come join the fray. This 04 to 06 draft also takes 4 more selections away from the 07-08 and puts them on the onus of 04 to 06.
Exactly. And even though there are 2 phases to it, it all goes to the same protected list, right? So if you're a team that maybe didn't have a ton of age outs, in this case they would be 04s this year, 03s last year. If you didn't have a ton of those guys and you think to yourself, man, I really want more guys like that. I want more older players, right? You wouldn't take as many phase 1 picks so that you made sure that you had room for all of your phase 2 picks. Now, if you're a program that, developed a lot of talent and you're saying to yourself, well, those guys are either coming back for their final year or maybe you've moved them on a little bit early, right? You may need to fill a little bit more in the phase 1 selection, especially if you're a team that may have, cut a couple of players or moved some guys around to create extra space. So really, the simplest way to put it is exactly how Dan said. You have that 46-man list. You have 46 spots to fill. You can choose to fill it however you want, which means that for some teams, they started passing early, and seems like everyone in the league basically took that same tact.
Yeah, and in this 04 to 06 round, another facet was you're not able to trade these picks, right? You can't take one of these 4 rounds and trade away your option. You're selecting these 4 picks. So there is no passing in phase 2 of the draft. So you have to take all 4 of these picks. So you have to leave the space on the roster to get the right guys in these 4 picks because you're going to have to take them, right? So that also opens up space. And to me, what it does is it provides these skaters that are getting drafted right now into the NCDC the opportunity to have every ability to go into camp this summer and earn themselves a spot. There's not a player on that board that was taken by Casper here with me back there with Coach Smilovich and Chris and Rhea and Heather and the whole crew here, Lucas as well, who's having to be more on the broadcast. The technical director's sticking to the technical stuff. But you look at that, there's not a kid on that board who doesn't have a chance to play this year. Every single guy, the one rule I have, when I was talking to Smilovich, I said, we need guys that we can I want to be even our youngest guy to have a chance to make this roster. Everybody comes to camp. Everybody has a chance to make this thing. And you heard Coach Rob Broderick. We did an interview with him that will eventually release out on the internet now that there was no space in these shows for any of the interviews that we did yesterday.
Barely had space for Deputy Commissioner Tony Sazowski.
Crazy. And what we'll do is what we talked to him about, he said, you know what, all my guys that come to camp have a chance to play. And that was something that I love from Coach Brods. And you hear from a lot of coaches right now with this new setup. It's everybody's going to have a chance, and it's going to be exciting.
I think so too, and I think that's the coolest thing about the way everything has been set up this year, and to slightly above average. Hopefully, we answered your question. The one thing,
and you know what, you're even more above average. Even more, you're above average. Don't put slightly in front.
Don't
of
put
it.
Slightly.
Fully above average.
Fully above average. Well, it's one thing that I started my post-college career as a teacher, as a high school teacher, right? So one thing I always try to tell my students was, there's no such thing as a dumb question, because if you have a question, somebody else does. And you just have to get out there and ask it, right? Because it's going to help everybody. So we always appreciate the questions. We're monitoring the live chat at YouTube. If you do have a question, as we're starting to get into the last round of Phase 2, if you have a question, Now is the time to fire that question or the chance. You've got us for a little bit more. It's not often we get to do this in such an open format. So if you've got questions, now's the time. But Dan, let's first go to this round 18, this final round of the Phase 2 draft.
The final picks are in. The draft has concluded. The final picks are in. Anybody not selected at this point can become a free agent and basically be signed to a free agent deal with teams with space on the roster, the ability to do so. And they can go try out at camps across the country. Every one of the 18 teams in the NCDC camps and opportunities to go make those rosters. If you weren't drafted today, that is not the end of the world. Keep working, keep battling. Plenty of opportunity in Tier 2 hockey, all abounding. Ethan Rose, taken from Rock Springs, Littleton, Colorado star. This is a young man who was middle of the pack in his Colorado Thunderbirds 18s team, and just a heady player. Just a guy who plays the game right, just puts himself in the right position, doesn't need to be on the stat list every night to be happy. This is a real team player and a nice ad for Rock Springs. Twin City, they get Nolan Friedman, goaltender from Denver, Colorado, an SF Power 18 star. Pontus Bjork goes to Northern, an 06 left winger. You can go to Northern Cyclones social media after this. Coach Bill Dubbs there recapping his draft on social media. You can listen in to Coach Bill Dubbs, and it's Wyand, not Wieland. Everybody calls him Wieland for some reason.
Tell me Wyand.
Tell me Wyand. I can't sing the song anymore. We made that rule. Matthew Clevenger. Wilkes-Barre Scranton Knights take him. Rochester, Michigan, and Oakland Junior Grizzlies 18U star. Next up, Trofim Godkachin. Godochkin. There we go. Trofim Godochkin from the Connecticut Junior Rangers in 05. He'll skate for them. Then next up, Garrett Lansing from the Jersey Hitmen, New York native, right defenseman. John Schwepp, Rockets Hockey Club, get another good one. St. Louis Blues, AAA, 6'1", 155, right defenseman. The Rockets and Jersey, two of those teams neck and neck for best draft of the day. Adam Severson goes to the Pueblo Bulls in 04 to Gillette NA3HL, 6'1", 185. Idaho Falls, they take Alex Sabev out of Roseville, Minnesota, a goaltender for the Kings. The Spud Kings, that is. Next up from Westchester, Braden Shake, goaltender out of Mississauga, Ontario, played for the Patriots of the OJHL. Jeremy Jacobs goes to Mercer, forward in an 05 from Westchester, Pennsylvania. Taking the Westchester guy away from the Westchester Wolves. Mercer and Rob Broderick, a nice pick there. Casper's final pick of their first ever NCDC draft, Braden Hickling. Young man from the Orange Lutheran ADHS League there in Mission Viejo, California, centerman, and 06 in the final pick of the first draft for Casper. Utica, they'll take Lucas Schunzel, an 06 left defenseman from Sweden. Utah takes Cole Mears, a forward in an 06 from Elk River, another Elk River native there. South Shore takes Justin Bayers, a goaltender from Westlake Village. They've got a few goaltenders that can make a difference in this draft, especially working under the tutelage of Coach Tyler Holsky. Ogden takes a Seoul, South Korea star with a lot of heart here, Junzu Kwak, a centerman in an 06 who played elite hockey 18 in the AYHL. IHC takes Ethan Braku, the forward from Auburn, Maine. And as they call it in the NFL, Mr. Irrelevant, but there's nothing irrelevant about this pick. This young man will be a star from Fox Motors 18, PAL's final pick of the NCDC entry draft in 2024, Logan Martinelli.
And the Fox Motors program is certainly an impressive program, right? They develop a lot of great talent. Logan Martinelli, certainly no exception there. He's going to have a great time with PAL. Again, you might want to start going now. The traffic's a little bit crazy. I want to back up a bit to the 315th overall pick from Idaho Falls, Alex Sabev, the goalie from Roseville, Minnesota. He's an 06, started his hockey career with the Loons 14U program. And he continued to work his way up, eventually splitting time between the Green Giants and Irondale High. This is someone whose career gets more and more impressive as you continue to look at it. He consistently stays above that 9.2 percentage in terms of save percentage. A couple of dips here and there, but I mean, somebody who very capably can stop the puck in a lot of good situations. And you know what? I love a goalie who comes in with a little bit of size as well, right? That's 6'1", 170. That's what you want to see. Just feels like someone who's going to be able to go to that Idaho Falls program, earn his spot in net, earn some of his places in net. And Alex, I will tell you this. You get out there to be a netminder to start a game for Idaho Falls, and you hear those 5,000 fans screaming for you, it is an experience. It is a little bit crazy. He's prepared coming from Minnesota. There's a
Yeah.
lot of rabid hockey fans in Minnesota.
Rabbit hockey fans?
Yeah.
Like with ears?
No, rabid.
Oh.
Yeah, that's my jersey coming out. We like to skip a lot of syllables
Yeah,
in
makes
Jersey. I get made fun of for it a lot, but you get to Idaho Falls, you get the 5,000 screaming fans there, and it is an otherworldly experience.
That's the draft. Phase 2. Comes to
That's
a
it.
conclusion.
Let's see if we've got any more questions coming in from YouTube before we
You-
give kind of our parting words
You
here.
look at this draft and you look at how this thing went. It went quick. You talk about teams that were ready to make selections, teams that were ready to make picks, teams that were locked in on what the plan was, and there was no time wasted.
Not a single second wasted. It was an impressive showing from our NCDC coaches and owners. We thank RinkNet, number one, for making all of this possible, because without RinkNet, Dan and I wouldn't have live updating draft picks. We wouldn't be able to have everyone picking from kind of a central registry, right? It's technology like RinkNet that really helps kind of make this thing efficient and make it fun. It helps us make it fun by getting able to talk to the folks at home who are watching with us now. And again, we thank you for jumping over to the Phase 2 stream. Little bit of a hiccup, but you know us. You know the Dan K Show doesn't take no for an answer in terms of the technology. So we like to get things up and running as quickly as possible. And more often than not, we'll fix the problem and get back on the air.
The National Collegiate Development Conference is your place to play junior hockey. It's your place to play Tier 2. And now in an even more close role with an organization with a great governor and owner like Chris Reeves and his wife Rhea and the entire crew here, Heather Needham in charge of our finances here and making sure that Dan K is staying on budget. As I don't really understand the dollar values and things. Lucas in charge of our technical setup, Dan K in charge of operations, and Jacob Smilovich behind the bench. It's going to be exciting for us in the Casper world. For Westchester, RC Light, Tyler Casillo. They've got Dom over there, our boy, Dom DeSico, helping out with recruiting, not just for Westchester, but for Atlanta, the Mad Hatters, who they're working with in the Premier Elite and overseeing. It's such an exciting time in hockey right now. There's so many great people in it, and you just see South Shore, you're defending Dineen Cup champions. Ogden wants a rematch. I can guarantee you that. This is going to be an exciting season, the 24-25 NCDC season. More info to come. You can follow along at NCDCJR Hockey on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and X or Twitter, whatever you'd like to call it. You can go follow NCDCJR Hockey on all of those platforms. Follow the most watched show in junior hockey, the Dan K Show, at @the_Dan K Show. It'll be a different year for us. A little bit of some shaking things up, some new looks, some new places, some new faces, and the Dan K Show will look real different for everyone at home. Be sure to follow the Dan K Show at @the_Dan K Show, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok as well for those pages. Anything else, Lucas, before we get to the close of this Phase 2 of the NCDC draft?
Congratulations to all of the players who were selected in Phase 1 and Phase 2. Welcome to the NCDC. Welcome to Tier 2 hockey. It's going to be fun wherever you've ended up, but now the real work begins. It's time to put in some of that off-season effort. Make sure you're putting in that effort every single day. Make sure you take care of yourself mentally and physically. Hockey is a grind. For a lot of folks just finishing up a season, the temptation is to get right into next year. Be smart. Give yourself the time that you need to get ready. Come back even stronger for next season and ready to make an impact.
When Dan K's on a mic, it's always hockey night. Phase 2 of the NCDC draft is behind us. You can go to ncdchockey.com to see all 18 rounds of selections in Phase 1 and Phase 2 right now. Head on over to the website and stay tuned on social media all day long for updates from all the teams in the NCDC about who they picked. I'm sure everyone's feeling like a winner today. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and tune in next time to the Dan K Show.